the artist today. Our artist and demonstrator instructor is Kathi Hanson. I'm going to give it over to her in just one moment. I wanted to say hi and familiarize everybody with General Pencil in case you are new to our product line. I'll just give you the quick elevator pitch. We are a family-owned business. We are based out of Jersey City, New Jersey, and we are manufacturing artist pencils. We're well known for charcoal and white charcoal, pastel, graphite, which you'll be using today, and also a line of cleanup products called the Masters. So we thought it would be fun to include in your packet one of our Masters hand soap bars, which is really effective for working in any crafting medium, especially paint, but also even household crafts and household chores like working on cars, working in the garden. So we thought that would just be a fun bonus for everyone. Maybe some of you might know the Masters brush cleaner. A lot of oil painters know the product and enjoy it. So we just wanted to thank you for being here and let you know a little bit about us. And Kathi will pretty much be leading the rest of the class. We will take a quick intermission, about 45 minutes into the class to let everyone just stand up, stretch your legs, and I will play a brief 3-minute video that gives kind of some fun footage and behind the scenes of our factory in New Jersey. So you won't really hear from me much until then. If you have questions, Tara and I will be answering them in the chat. And thank you again for being here. Kathi.
Thanks so much, Kirsten. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Kathi now. We can get started.
Okay. Hello, everybody. You guys are going to be seeing my hands more than my face. I'm hoping at the very end to be able to switch over. And but right now we've got bad weather and it's just best. This is more important than looking at my face. So first of all, thank you so much. I would really love to know if we have a lot of beginners, intermediate, or advanced people. If you could throw that in the chat bar for them, that would be awesome. I'm going to approach this from a beginner's aspect. We're only going to do partial petals, not all of them in the time allotted. So anyone who's versed in pencil art, feel free to go on and continue each step in additional petals until I'm getting ready to start the next step, because we're doing step-by-step progression, because we don't want you to fall behind. The tutorial that you guys all have the capability to download has a lot of pencil art theory, tips and techniques in it, as well as all of these step-by-step, where I show you each step. There's like 16 pages of this, because one of the most common problems with beginners is they tend to rush the process. They think it should look further than it really is. For instance, it's not going to look like, these petals are not going to look like this in the first step. This is all you are trying to accomplish in that first step. So it's layer upon layer upon layer, because each layer will give a different value. You need a minimum of 3 values in any element to create form and dimension. Notice another difference. This top paper is much brighter white than this one. That's going to make a difference in how bright your highlights are going to be. So experiment with all different types of paper. The paper I listed is a good high quality one because of the poundage. You want a minimum of 80 pounds, if not 90, 110. The higher the pounds, the thicker the paper is. And you can erase more times on thicker paper without compromising the top surface integrity. You're also going to find out different papers. Some have a smooth side and a more texture side. For a landscape, I would use more texture. For flowers, I tend to choose the smoother side of the paper. You know, and it's like with any other medium, the more you do it, the more familiar you're going to be with it. And it's going to go easier. You know, the first time you paint it, if you could blend perfectly, I hate you because I had to work at it. You know, the more you do it, the better you get at anything. Another thing, this is a bold version because some people tend to be heavy-handed. But for those of you with a light touch, it really doesn't matter. We just adjust, use different pencils to lay darker amounts or lighter amounts of pigment down. That's why you have several pencils in your kit. For me, I will start out with my HB. That's always the first layer. Then my next darks, I do a 2B. And then for my darks, I'll do a 6B. Someone heavy-handed would use a 4B, not the 6B. Some of you that are really, really light, you would want to use the layout pencil because this one will do light to medium to dark, all in one pencil. Because in some areas you might have been heavy-handed, in some areas you might have been light. Now, you'll notice to make something darker, you don't press harder. That is just saturated right down into the paper. Trying to blend it out or erase it it's going to be harder to do. When you want something darker, you just lay more down. And you notice I'm working right about here. I am not up in this tight death grip handwriting position. That is only when you want to make crisp, very, very straight, concise lines. You are going to want to work about here. Or if you want that value, but a lighter value of that value, if you even go further up, do you see how it's that same value, but a little bit lighter than that? So get used to working the entire length of the pencil. And you want to work with a rounded tip, not a sharp tip like that comes straight out of the kit. That again, sharp tip lays less pigment down. So I use a sharp tip for lines. Because look how much longer it's going to take me to try to fill in because those lines are skinnier than when I use a rounded tip. Do you see how the lines are wider? So it fills in much quicker. Okay. So I will be calling out the pencils as we go. In your kit was the brush cleaner, ta-da, the little travel size. It comes in several sizes, and I use this all the time in my studio to remove paint. But we also gave you one of our hand soaps. This stuff is amazing. Some of my other designs, I work a lot with graphite powder too. It will take paint out, powder out, grease stains. It will take anything off of your hands and stains, dyes, clays, grime, clay, grease, paints. But what I love about it is I fight really, really dry hands, and the conditioning agent in this is amazing. So I use this for all my cleanup, and actually I wash my hands before I do any pencil art for two reasons. I might have hand lotion residue. I might have ate a meal recently. All of those little things that might be in your skin do transfer to your paper surface.
Hey, Kathy, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I wanted to jump in. They're only getting the hand soap. Everybody seems to be concerned they didn't get the brush cleaner, but we only included the hand soap for this package. So I just want to make sure nobody feels like they got slighted. We just included
And actually, I think they just grabbed the wrong thing for the photo because the photo didn't have the hand soap. It had the brush cleaner. The hand soap was what I requested for this because we were working with paper and pencil art, and clean hands is so important. Okay. Okay, where was I? I totally lost track, which I don't do that often. The soap. And one more thing. If you have bulky jewelry or a watch on, you should take that off. Because again, when you're doing this, that surface, it's getting abrased lightly. And it might show up down the road when you're going to fill in more pigment in an area. So those are just little extra things that I like to share with you. Another thing in the tutorial, my website information is wrong on that. My new website is, the old one was kathyhanson.com. The new one is kathyhansonart.com. So I wanted to make you guys all aware of that in case you'd like to check out my website down the road, which would be greatly appreciated. All right, we are going to start up right now. I trace my pattern on my paper. You can feel free to freehand it as well. When you are tracing on, you want to trace with an HB pencil. Okay. And hopefully you all have your patterns traced on. With this just being an hour and a half, we are going to concentrate on creating this many petals because it shows you how to create one that's behind a flower, almost totally on both sides, slightly behind one in these other ones. And these two have the little flip, actually three, and these two don't. Anything that is done on the rest of these is being taught in these. It's just repetition. It's just continuing. When you go back to finish this later on, let's say you wanted to work here, your hand is going to cover part of your finished work. This is why I said, excuse me, I wanted you to have the Canson tracing paper. It is the most see-through tracing paper of any. So when you cover your work to work somewhere else, you can still see all the value exchanges, okay? So I always have a piece of tracing paper when I'm working and to cover it up in between stages, okay? We're gonna start out with a round tip. And remember I said, if you want more, layer more, don't press harder when we start blending it out, okay? So I'll start with my fresh one. You're going to pick up your HB pencil, and that's what's so great about these visuals. I actually show you where I want you to place the pigment in all of these. In the second visual, it's going to show you what it would look like after you've blended out all that pigment, okay? So here's our first visual. So in
Where
this
is the
one,
pattern?
when you guys signed up for class, you should have gotten that PDF to print off that had all the instructions, all the visuals, and the pattern. Lauren?
Yeah, I've shared it. Thanks, Kathy. I shared the link, the link was in the confirmation email for the event, but for those that missed it, I just put it in the chat. I put it in the chat earlier. I can keep putting it in the chat. Everyone should access this because it's not just for the line art for the event, but the tutorial portion, the tips that Kathy gives you are completely invaluable. It is an amazing document. So definitely, and I'll put it in the chat one more time. Okay, and then Lauren's going to put the actual PDF in there too. So we should be covered.
All right, for those of you that don't have it and would like to at least try, we could do this. I want you guys to just kind of create a center like this on your piece of paper. And then I'm going to want you to just, it's not going to look exactly the same. Draw something like this. Okay. And then I'm going to have you draw something like this. And then come back right there. And I'm going to have you draw one like this. And again, it's just so you can practice. Then I highly suggest you go back and watch the entire video that's going to be available once you have your pattern drawn, and you'll be able to repeat the whole thing, okay? And then the next one, we're going to go sort of like this and make it bigger. And then this one is gonna just sort of meet up like that. And then I'm gonna have you erase just this line right here. Okay, so that's sort of what you can just do for starters. I'm gonna give everybody a few seconds to do that. Does anybody have the actual pattern traced on? Can you let them know in the chat, please? Okay, great. Some of you guys do. Those of you that don't have it, you have this done. Say yes or no. All right, see, problem averted. All right. We had this step-by-step visual. So this one right here, I'm going to put it in first here, just a little bit. You only have a little bit showing. And in this one, I'm going to leave this visual out for you guys while I create mine. I want you to create this one, this one, this one, and this one for starters. Okay, I'll leave that visual, but I'm going to show you what I do. You don't go back and forth. What you're going to do is, and I've got my hand almost where it says USA, work further back. And you're going to, like colored pencil, rounded tip. If your tip isn't rounded, bring it over to the edge of your paper or scratch paper and just work it all around till it's more rounded. You're going to do circular motions. Okay. It sort of skates over the top of it. Okay, we're going to do circular motions about like this. Now, you notice I didn't bring the line all the way down here or all the way down here. You never want to totally outline something. It tends to flatten it, okay? So you're going to be doing one at a time. I want you to start with this little guy because if you make a boo-boo, it's no biggie. He barely shows, okay? Now, we are going to be blending with a paper stump, tortillon, whatever you want to call it, okay? The only time you blend on the top is if you want to set a line in. Can you see how that looks so much wider and smoother than the area that was just the pencil? You want to hold it on its side. I always tell everyone, drop it and pick it up. You want to hold it on its side. You're going to have a lighter touch and you're going to just circular motions. I'm going to just do part of it to show you the difference. Do you see how that looks smooth now? And that still shows the pencil lines. So first we're going to blend these areas. And then I actually blend over the lines too. So those pencil lines just merge in as well. Circular. If it's not moving, it means you didn't lay enough pigment down, so you just bring a little more. Now, to soften these so it gets lighter, 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 we're going to do it a little different. You notice your tortillon is going to be a little messy and dirty now, and one side's still clean. So the messy side, lay in the pigment. the clean area, leave on the paper, and start pulling it into the open space. See how that softens that line? If you have to, go back down into it a little to pull it up even a little more. I will do this because you want that line to disappear. So it does that, it just goes out to nothing. Now notice how much that line grew. So when you're putting your pigment in, remember, if I want it to go to here, maybe stop it here, not all the way down there. Allow room for it. Now I'm going to straddle. Allow room for it to grow. Just soften out into nothing. Even do it on the sides. And then when you get all those lines done, come in and put a little value in that little loop area. Okay? So we're going to do that on this one, this one, this one, and this one. I'm going to leave that visual for you, and I will do the rest of mine off to the side. And if you have any questions, throw them in the pop chat area. They'll make me aware of it, and I can either give a second example, walk you through it a little more.
Kathy, one question came up. Is for folks that don't feel comfortable freehand drawing from the line art, do you have a tip yes, that if they don't have graphite transfer paper, a way to get that image transferred?
Oh my gosh, I don't use tracing paper. I will hold my pattern, which is right here. If you have a light box, obviously that's the easiest. But you actually have this big line drawing. I walk over to a window, I turn around, and I have my light box right here. We'll pretend this is a window. No, it's not plugged in. Darn it. Where is it? No. You're gonna tape this to the window. Pretend this is a piece of paper. You are gonna then place your piece of paper on top of it. That pattern is going to show through on this thick paper, whether it's a light box or if it's a window. And then you're going to trace it on. And that's a really good question because I do not do stiff lines. First of all, I only make it as dark as it's needed. And I sort of just nice, soft little strokes like this. Now I'll do the next one stiff and you'll see the difference. A flower is not stiff. So can you see? See how much softer that trace just by those light lines instead of just making it very distinct and dark? Tends to flatten it. See how that already looks like it has a little form? And lighter lines are easier to blend than these real dark ones. See the difference? So I always just do it in a window. You could, yeah, actually to trace it with tracing paper, you would have to do the opposite. First, you would have to trace it on, then you would have to flip it over and trace those lines. And then turn it over on your paper with a stylus or something sharp and transfer it over.
Kathy, the window trick, it's like, how long have I been in this industry and never thought the fact that a window replicates a light box? Mind blown. So
you know,
thank you.
I also taught art and I learned how, I mean, it was like everything costs money and you have such a limited budget. I learned how to do a lot of things free. Or it's like, well, what did they do before they invented light boxes, you know? That's how I seal my work when we get to that point. You know, how did you seal work before fixatives? Because not everyone can use a spray fixative. Some people are very allergic to things like that. So
Excellent
that,
point. Well, thank you.
so I've got 2 done. Let's see how everyone else is getting along. I'll do my 3rd one. Remember, use your visual that's placed in front of you. And you know what, guys? It's just a piece of paper. Okay. And actually, we're going to see how our timing goes. We're going to, for starters, because it's already, we're into a half an hour. I want you to just do these 3. We're just going to do 1, 2, 3 for starters. We can always come back if time allows to do more. Once you have finished these 3, love for you to put in the chat box done so I can have an idea of how fast some are working, if some need more time. I couldn't even do this whole thing in an hour and a half. And that's why I chose this design, because once you know how to do every step in a few petals, it's the same theory in the rest of them. And with all those visuals and being able to have access to that video again, everyone should be able to complete this. So boom, I've got my 3 done. And again, we're not looking for perfection, guys. This is the first stage. If some of you have yours done, you can get your kneaded eraser out of your little bag, because we're going to be using the kneaded eraser in the next step. And this is your kneaded eraser. And just start bending it and applying it a little bit, molding it. Again, the secret is to go slow. And if yours isn't as dark as mine, it's actually a good thing. I'm doing mine dark so you can see it. Mine is going to end up more like the darker version. If yours are softer, they're going to look more like this version. And both of them are very, very, pretty. It's personal taste and pro. All right, does everybody have those 3 done? Does everybody have at least the first 2 done?
I'm getting a lot of yeses.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to look at that next visual that actually showed you how it looked blended out. And then the 3rd visual, now look at this, that's blended out. We need to have a few more lights in that. So that 3rd visual was really showing you in the high point of every petal, because these petals tend to bend down a little bit, we need to lighten the values, and that's what we use our kneaded eraser for. And so I'm going to kind of make up a shape. I don't want it square, so I'm going to kind of round it out a little bit. And the harder you press, the more pigment it's going to remove. So start out with a light touch. So I'm going to, can you see how it's pulling more out? Yes, no? We don't want it as bright here as here. So I use less pressure there. And in the brightest area, I use more. Okay, so I lifted more out. And this back one only really has a tiny bit lifted out. So we wanted to lift more out. Then I'm going to have to soften those edges, but let's get them nice and light first. Just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then I want you to take your tortilla again and softly work out just those final edges a little bit. So it looks like nice and smooth, not blotches. Okay. You guys hear my kitty?
No, but now that you mention it, I think it needs to make an appearance.
Nothing like cat paws over graphite drawing.
Well, the cat's not normally at my studio, but one of my sons had surgery and his cat sheds like crazy. And it's not an enclosed suture. It's open and they have to do a lot of changes. So they didn't want the cat there, possibly getting cat hair in there. So his cat's at my house because he needs more attention. And my little guy came to the studio. So does everybody have this stage? Hopefully, yes. Now we're going to take that BM2 pen style eraser. Now it's going to have a flat top. You can work off the corners for lines, but what I like to do is pull it a little further out, put my finger on one side and erase. And then flip it and erase again. I can make it more rounded. I can turn it into a chisel edge and make that as thick or wide as I want. Okay. So when it gets to the point you can't just work off the edge, do that. First thing we want to do, this petal is in front of this petal. So right on this edge, partially, not all the way up, I want to erase right there. See how I erased on the edge of that petal? But notice I stopped it. Well, we'll take it about that far. And then I'll bring this up close. I stopped it right here. Can you see it? I did that line just to here. I didn't take it all the way to the edge. That is another little tip. Taking it all the way to the edge will flatten it. So I want you to make a little line there first. And this side too, but just at the bottom, not all the way up. Okay. So that separated those two. Okay. Number 4 visual shows you all these stages. What we're doing next is we're putting the vein lines in each one of these petals. Okay. Notice I did not take that all the way to the edge either. Okay. And I'll show you why later in another step. So what we're going to do, we follow the shape of the petal. Watch me. And I kind of do it light first to see if I got what I wanted. You can put 2 or 3 in. It's totally up to you. I've done it both ways. Notice I'm using a really soft camel hair round or mop to move the debris off. Because if you use your hand, you can tend to smear it. If you don't have a brush, I will take a cotton ball if need be, because it's super, super soft and it's not going to move your pigment. Okay. So I did that one. Now, this one, I'm going to come from the top instead. So you're not going to see much. You're only going to see really one line. These end up behind the other one. Okay. See how I did that? Now look at the third one. I haven't done that yet. Look how much difference the progression is already just with the addition of those lines. So that's why I say take it slow. I purposely break this down into several steps so you don't muddy or get overwhelmed. Now this one, a lot of this petal's not showing on the top, so the area that definitely is, start your line there. Then if you want to come up from the bottom for the remaining ones, it's easier to follow that form and get nice, precise lines. Don't worry if your lines are thicker than you want them. That's a step down the road, okay? So when you're doing it later, again, remember, you have a visual for every step to show you for placement. Okay. Everyone should have those lines in because we only did 3. Now,
Kathy,
I
sorry.
use the Factus pen eraser. Another eraser that I always use is the ES20 extra soft white vinyl eraser. When it's totally new, you actually could just use the corner of this to remove those. But sadly, the more you do it, see how it gets rounded and loses that crisp point. So, but I always like to tell you there is a substitute. Couldn't think of the word. Kirsten, I'm sorry, you were saying?
I was just going to do what you just did and kind of call out that eraser. It's a really popular eraser in our line. And I put a link in the chat for the refills if you
Excellent.
enjoy that
Yes.
pen style eraser. And then Tara just linked the ES20 vinyl
So
eraser.
guys, come right out and we have a 3-pack refill. Okay. All right, now we're going to go to the next step. Our first step was with our HB pencil, which is the hardest of the soft pencils. 2, 4, 6, 8, the higher the number in the B's, the more pigment lays off the pencil, so the darker the value is. I like to go HB, 2B, 6B because the colors or the values slowly transition light to dark. If you were to go from an HB to a 6B right away, it would jump too quick. And again, it's just it's going to flatten your work, but also it's distracting. It's like, whoa, whoa, you're going boom, boom. You want it to just slowly go from light to dark. Now, you'll notice with the second value, we do it in smaller amounts because remember, it's going to grow and we still need to see some of the previous values showing. Okay, so here's that visual I'm going to show you. It was super easy. Pick up that 2B and it's going to go here and here and most of down here because this little guy is hiding behind him. Okay, now on this one, we're starting out really just, and remember, circular lines. I started straight and I shouldn't have. Okay, and a little bit up here. Now remember, you don't want it, you don't lose these little guys. Okay, those are the flip areas. So we're going to put a little here, and less is more. You can put it in, and if it's not as dark as you want, well, then you just turn around and reapply even more. Okay. And then because this one sits in front of this, we've got to have a darker value here to separate it, as well as down in the center. So it's really not a lot. And then I do the exact same thing with the tortillon blending stump. And lots of times you don't even have to turn it on its side in some areas. Now, if this gets too dirty for you, first of all, flip it to the clean side for when you want to do that final pull out. Or you can take Kleenex, paper towel, whatever, and wipe the excess off. What's cool about them when they get real dirty, let me grab a real dirty one, is let's say I wanted a little more value right here. You don't have to draw with the pencil. Do you see how sometimes this will lay a light layer of color in? So sometimes I'll first try with the tortillon. If it doesn't lay down enough, then I'll come with the pencil. And see, part of this second color goes over those edges because it would be, the lines are more pronounced in light areas than in dark areas. Okay. I'll blend this side too real quick for you, and then I'll just put the visual in front of you again. You want to place color here, here. It doesn't show up here too much, so I'm going to put some there. Same thing here. You want to do those three. And notice it, I'll make it real dark so you can kind of see. See, this is the flip. I didn't bring it all the way to the flip area on either one of them, because we're going to want this a little lighter because the top of this area is going to be darker. Let me show you on a finished one. See how it's a little lighter here because in that flip area, it's darkest way up there. Are you guys finding my directions easy to follow? I would love some feedback. And hopefully you're all learning something today. And you know, I'm showing you the particular techniques I use to create a flower. There's different techniques when you're creating wood or metal or whatever. So each one of my classes, I keep that in mind, and the subject matter I choose is different. I say, ooh, what haven't I taught them yet? Oh, this. What is something I would use this technique on? And that's really what determines what that particular design is going to be. Because, like I said, the teacher in me comes out. I love opening everyone's eyes to the possibilities of pencil art. All righty. I have mine done. Does anybody else have their 3 done? All right. Now, we evaluate every step of the way. I'm looking at mine. I notice, oh, maybe I'll blend a little more there. I've lost the edge right here. So I need to erase that back out. And notice, you look like you have a line, and then it almost looks like you don't, and then it's a little brighter. That is what you want to do. Never completely the line, okay? And I lost a little bit of this line, so I can bring that back. If you don't want it as bright, there's 2 things you can do: lighter touch, or If it's darker than you want, you need to correct. Instead of picking your pencil up, you should have a little bit of dirty tortillon. Watch this. If I don't like something, I can turn around and soften it that way as well. I'll do this one again too. So let's bring this all the way up and down. Ooh, look at, I don't like that tip. So I don't have to worry about erasing. I can soften that with that tortilla a little bit. Okay. Or bring it in. So I'm liking all of those. The next thing to do is take that 2B pencil. If these are still totally white, take your dirty tortillon and fill them in, and then bring a little bit of that 2B up there, right at the top. Can you see those two lines? And then you're going to soften them out into the rest of it, just like you did the other ones. Because even in this small area, we need more than one value. Can you see that? It's all about value, all about value. Now, remember how I said this line is killywampus. Don't like that line. So to correct it, I find it easier to spin it over, and I'm going to run the tortillon on the inside of it to push it in to create the actual line I wanted. You see how that corrected it? Okay. And again, once you have all those lines in, you'll have that visual to go by. Okay. Another thing I want to point out right now, when you are working on the entire design, when you get to the second value that we did, as well as the third value, notice it went up further here than here. I altered some of them. I really had a lot coming out, some less. If they all are the exact same length of the medium and then the dark, it's going to flatten it out too. You want to stagger things, just like the edges. We don't totally outline. We also don't make everything the same length when it's in a circle. Okay. The next step, now we're putting the darks in. Now, notice when I showed you the medium values we were putting in, right here, it showed how far they went out. Now, when I show you the darks, do you see how little they are? Look, we had them everywhere here, on a lot of the tips and down here, and wherever a petal was laying under another one. The darks are just tiny reinforced highlights, okay? And there's X's where they should be. I'm going to make it brighter so you can see. Wherever a super dark was, I actually put it next to the petals areas I wanted you to place it. Okay. So in the few that we did, there's really only a little bit here and down here. So you're going to take your 6B and actually this is where on the side of your paper, when I take all my finished art out of the mats, it's so funny, you see little marks all the way around the edges. If you don't know if you're heavy-handed or light, first try it with the 4B and then kind of look. See, for what I did, that's really not going to look darker than this. So I would have to choose the 6B. See how darker that is? So 6B would be my choice. You have to see if 4B or 6B is your choice. So following my guide, I have, and it's in small amounts. Do you see how little that is? But you see how that punched that so much more? Now I'm going to put a little here. And it doesn't go all the way to the edge, but you see how that automatically makes that look like it really sets in under the center compared to the one next to it. Okay, just a tiny bit up here to set that in more, and a tiny bit here on mine. Now, do you see how that looks almost like the exact same shape as that? Because of that, I need to make this a different shape. Okay. Otherwise, it looks like two little eyeballs looking at you. Okay. So then sometimes you barely have to smush these little guys. And this is one time you can almost work off the tip. Okay. See how much more depth that gave that? I'm going to do it on the third one. Follow your design a little bit here. And down here. And a little right there. And a little right there. So I'll leave that there for you. Okay. And I'll get mine in. It doesn't show up as much as you want. Remember, just layer a little bit more. It'll kind of look like that. Does everybody have those done? You guys enjoying this and learning stuff, hopefully?
The chat is very quiet, which usually means that folks are super focused and very much enjoying it. I do have a couple of questions though, if now's a good time.
Perfect.
Okay, Shelley wants to know how to get a clean edge on the pencil eraser. That's a
Oh,
good question.
excellent question. It's self-cleaning. So see how dirty mine is right now? All you do is erase. I spin it all around. Take that off. See how it's clean again? It's the same thing with the ES20 extra soft white vinyl eraser. Do you see how I've got such a fine tip on this now? I said, I love the fact I can alter this into almost any shape. Okay.
And you just got that by applying pressure on each side until you got a point,
Yep,
right?
I lay my finger, I'll bring it out more. So you can really see I've got a nice chisel edge right now.
Yeah.
Put my finger on one side of it and erase. And then I flip it. See how that changed that shape?
Mm.
Now I'll hold that side, kind of pull towards me, and I made a chisel edge. I can make it blunt, chiseled. If you want it like it was initially, that big fat round one, well, then I just nip that off and I've got round again. And this is so versatile, and not even watercolor paper. You ever have to worry about the surface integrity being compromised with it, no matter how many times you erase, because it is just so soft and pliable.
Also, one of my favorites as well. Okay, so
And
then
you know what? I haven't had to sharpen. One of the reasons we put a sharpener in your kit is two things make a good sharpener: the type of blade, but also the angle of the blade. You want a stainless steel German blade because pencil cores are very fragile. And then, but the angle's important. The point that you get right out of the packaging is the point you're going to get with this sharpener. You don't need to expose a whole bunch of pigment, especially with fragile cores. You drop them, they just break more. This will extend the life of your pencil. Okay. So it comes actually in canisters. If you don't want to deal with, having to pick up stuff, it's the exact same one, just the canister. Or like with that 9XXB, that is a wider core. I love our 3-in-1 because it has 3 different diameter holes for different types of pencils. But it also gives you the option of keeping graphite and charcoal separate from color. And if you do colored pencil, you do not want to use your colored pencil sharpener on any other pencil, because there is wax in a colored pencil, and that wax builds up. First of all, your sharpener is going to dull quicker. But second of all, if you then turn around and put a graphite or charcoal pencil in there, or pastel, that wax is going to be transferred, and you're going to be creating a little bit of a coating as you're working with it. So you really want to keep colored pencil, wax colored pencil sharpeners totally separate from any other pencil.
we don't have the general. Okay. All right, Kathy, one more question. Uh, okay, Kathy, at some point, would you talk a little bit about how to avoid overworking the drawing? Mine looks much flatter. I think it's because it's too smooth / overworked.
Well, overworked is a phrase I like to use maybe in watercolor. If yours looks flat, you rush the process. You should, here is your, you want to, if it looks flat, you're not seeing all 3 values. I'm not necessarily going to blend them. So your HB is like Papa Bear. The majority of your element, whatever it is going to be the mid value. Then when you start adding the 2B, soften that out to nothing. That is maybe half as much. Your darkest dark, the 6B, is only in small areas to punch. Do you see how that is looking like value? She might have not had enough of the first value showing, or put too much of the third value. That's just to punch. See how it just punched it? You saw the majority of the first, and then the second, and then a little bit of punch on the third. Does that explain it to you? Yes, no? Is she answering?
I think that was a great cover. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, guys. Now we're going to take our dirty tortillon and we are going to run it on either side of each one of these lines. Watch, I'm going to do one. And it's, first of all, I'm going to skinny it up to exactly where I want it. And then just continue drawing with that a little bit until it fades off to nothing. Then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side of it. Can you see that? How suddenly this one pops more than the other two? Looks more dimensional? Can you all see that? Yes, no? Can I get a yes? All right. We're going to do that to each line. Okay. Flip it. Now, if your tortillon isn't dirty enough like mine is, or so I want you to stop and see the difference. Do you see how these lines look more interesting than those and more dimensional? If you do not have a dirty enough tortillon, I'll take one that's cleaner. Make a swatch on the side and start blending it. I have just added more pigment to this to draw with. Can you see that? And if you have to do it a few times, nice and loose, get me some pigment here. Blend with it, spin it all around so it goes everywhere. And then you can draw with it. So do that first, okay? On all three of these. This one really only has one. And remember, if you don't like a line, this is when you can change that line. Push it in a little bit, give it a different shape with that dirty tortilla. And if you really don't like them, you can turn around, smush the color in, and redraw it where you want it. That's the beauty of it. Dirty it up.
Kathy, quick question. Susan wants to know, it sounds like Susan's outline lines for the initial line drawing might be still showing up and distracting. Do you have a tip for them on how to blend those in?
Yes. She might have missed when I said that. And actually, for the ones you haven't done yet, this might be easier. Remember how I had you put it in on both sides and then blend out, but I said also blend the lines? Before you even start putting it in the next one when you're working at home, look what I'm doing. I'm sort of running gently. Don't remember, not a lot of pressure. Pressure is going to push those lines in. We're just softening them. See how it pushes that line in? So it's softer, because then when we start adding more, can you see how the lines won't show as much? So run the tip of your blending stump or tortillon over all these lines to soften them up. You really only want to make your lines as dark as you need to see. Don't hesitate to, like right now, I want everyone to peek. That's too dark. Don't hesitate to take your kneaded eraser and lightly soften those lines. Okay? You only need the lines as dark as you need to see them. So for the rest of them, we could do this. You know, soften them, make them lighter. If they're still standing out too much on these three, it would be a lot of corrective, but I'm going to show everybody one. Okay. So I'm going to still outline this. So that's that first one. See how that line's still shown? Is that what hers is doing? Ask her to say yes or no. Hopefully she said yes. So watch this. Try doing what I just said.
She said yes.
Okay, try doing what I just said. If they still stand out too much, then what we can do, take your kneaded eraser, and I only do part of it. Press down and lift up. See, it lightened that line, but it also took that out. So first we would make sure we still had enough of our second area in. It's not enough, so we would go back with that 2B pencil again, repeat the process. Blend it out. This is why I said less is more. It's so much easier to have to go back in and apply more than try to match up. So now I got that second value back. Then I would have to go back with the 6B and do that again. Can you see that? So that's what the kneaded. The kneaded is partial removal. If you fight that all the time, the first thing I would do is just lighten the lines, only make them as dark as you need to see. That in itself will make it so much easier for you to not fight that problem. And again, the more you do this, guys, the more you do this, it just becomes effortless. I mean, I really want the pencil bug to bite you all. That's why I took the time to make all these visuals, because like I said, the first mistake everyone makes is rushing it, doing too much. I mean, look how many steps it took to get it to this, right? And that's what still gets the form. You need to see a little bit of every previous value in everything you do. That is what's going to give form. You want Mama or Papa Bear to be the first one, Mama Bear to be the first dark, Baby Bear to be the darkest. Those are just put in select areas for punch or depth or shadow. Like this has that because this is going to be really bright in front of it. This sits in front of this. You know, light source is real important. You'll see we've got the light hitting different areas of each petal depending on their placement. The ones down here, you notice they don't have near as much brights as these ones that are right, boom, boom, in that light source. So it's like study all these visuals, play around with your pencils, work the whole tip. Remember, the higher up you go, the lighter, but also looser. Lots of times in pencil art, especially soft things, florals, bushes, whatever, it will automatically look looser and more suggestive if you're working way back up there than if you have tight control. See the difference in the value? And this just seems more atmospheric than this. Okay. All right. Now I want you to take your dirty tortillon and just run it lightly here and there, not everywhere. We want more than one value in these little guys. That's just what I want you to do. See how I didn't do it all, and right off the bat, you see more than one value in these? It's real important. If you look at the finished one up close, do you see all those different values in it? And do you notice that it gives the illusion of each one of those little particles, pollen, whatever you want to call them, they all look separated, but they're not totally outlined. If I were to totally outline each one of them, where'd I put that piece of paper? That's one more I needed. Put it over here. Yes. See how it's detracting? That's the first thing your eye wants to go to, is where everything, you want subtle values. You see the difference? It's not just glaring at you like a bunch of little pop, 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 pop. Okay, but even though we're doing it like that, we need more than one value in there. So what I'm going to show you to do is you smushed them for starters. Now I want you to take your 2B pencil and just in some areas, like I did here. See, I pick and choose just a few. I'm going to pick another area here and another area maybe here. See these two? When I start blending them, first I blend, but then with a lighter touch, I kind of bring it a little bit here and there. I blended those two. Now I'm going to maybe just, I don't totally outline. Can you see how I'm doing that? You just kind of, like I'll do this one again. A little more here, a little more there, maybe a little bit here, and a little bit here. And there. You see how that's giving the illusion of all of them? But when I draw them and they're darker, when I just use the dirty tortillon, they're lighter. Because we need more than one value. So I start out with a little and then I can come back. So now I've got this much done. I'll try to hold this up for you. Now I'm going to come back. I got darker there and darker there. But you see right here, now maybe here, just a little bit darker, but not everywhere. First, you sort of establish in between each one of them with the dirty tortillon. So I'm going to continue more here. You see it there, but we need a little bit, maybe in between here too. Maybe a little bit in between here too. You see how they're starting to pop a little? Yes, no, maybe so. So first, I'd like to pop them with the dirty tortillon. Then I will come back and in smaller areas of where I did it, I'll even make it darker. Okay, can you see that? So once and this is time consuming. So first you smush the color and then with the dirty tortillon, start putting in some medium values. If it's not dirty enough, take the number 2 pencil. I'll do one right here. So let's say, never totally outline it. I just sort of make a shape like this. Can you see the one I'm working on? I'll do one here too. Sort of make triangles almost here and here. Then I take the tortillon, not only smush it, but then bring it a little further. Pull that into there maybe a little bit and maybe a little bit there and stop. See how that indirectly made it look like I separated a lot of them, and maybe I can push up just a little there so you know there's another one right there. This is probably the hardest part of all. Okay. And then, like I said, then you come back with that 6B once they're all done, and in very small amounts, just in some of them, you want that third value. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so in the chat.
While folks are answering, it looks like yes. The question somebody asked is do you ever leave the full white, like the pure white paper for the lightest values, or is there always some graphite?
Well, if you blended, we came back after step 1 and took more out with the kneaded eraser because I knew everyone's was going to grow really big. Okay, if you do it right, you actually don't need to use the kneaded eraser. This comes with time. I don't expect you to get this right away. See how I soften that out to nothing? The white of the paper really would have been still obvious. I'm rushing this to try to get you, but you see how that white, I mean, you would not leave it like this. You would transition all the way slowly, but you see how you can leave the white of the paper still. Now, I could have left the white of the paper in some of these, but it's such a small area because you have a light, a medium, and a dark now in here, right? This is the lightest value. And then the Portillion ones are the medium, and then the pencil tip are the darkest, right? We are actually going to be in small areas of each one of these, lifting to the white of the paper. It doesn't pick up on a camera, sadly, because it's very subtle. But inside every one of these, can you see how there's more than one? These few look more dimensional than these. It's because there is some of the white still showing in them. Okay. It's the tiny little details like this that make all the difference. The only thing we have left to do, and we have maybe 10 more minutes. We knew this was going to end at 1:30. We're hoping a few of you guys will stick around a little longer to see the very end of it. And we also have a fun, cool little video to share. So we're going to do, this is so easy, guys. You've been all warmed up. You're going to, and I'm not even going to blend first. I'm going to start with my HB pencil, and the directions say, fill almost the entire thing in. You're going to try to leave the white of the paper right here and right here for starters. Okay. So I'm going to start a little bit below that petal. And this is one thing I would tell you when you're finishing this on your own. Don't do this petal. Get all the petals except this done and your center, and then do this, because if you do this first and then try to make this sit underneath it, it's harder than if you do this and then right off the bat, you can lay that on top of it. You can do it either way. Now, even though I'm filling in the majority, notice I am leaving some lines. Remember, I said you don't totally outline anything. Yeah, we're going to about go like that. I'm going to rush this real quick. Now, again, see how I'm blending? See how I'm blending those lines? Whoever had that line problem, I'm making sure my lines are blended too. Now, even though I'm on the tip of it, it's very light. I don't want to push those lines in. I want to soften them. Then I go to the side of the tortillon. Circular motions will work best. If you go back and forth, you're going to tend to get lines. The lines are still going to show. If you do circular, like in the petals, the lines meld together and you don't see a line pattern. That makes sense? Okay, so then we have too much. So you have one of two things you can do. Just bring it up and leave that a little darker, or you can really get that kneaded again. Light touch though, because this is pretty good. Always take it a little further and then bring the pigment back in. So that's step one. Okay, step two, we would go to the 2B pencil, and we want more here. And we want more here. Remember, it's got to be a smaller area than the first color we put in. Now, even though it kind of looks like I outlined this, you notice it's wider here and wider here than here. We wanted it all along the edge, but different amounts. Okay. Blend this too. Bring it in. Bring it in.
Hey, Kathy, for the sake of time, because your instruction is so valuable, I'll just put the video in the chat and then people can watch it on their own time. I know that
It
it's
is really worth watching, you guys. I really hope you do. All right. Can you kind of see how that second value changed everything? But can you see how it looks more dimensional because it's darker here? It gets sort of lighter where the light source is, and then darker again. So that is round 2. And then round 3, of course, is Baby Bear. And it's going to be in even smaller areas. We want a little there, maybe a little right here, because it's up near the shadow. And I want a little bit down here. See how that changes it too? Can I hear a yes, no, maybe so? Now, that is going to be too dark up there. Even though it's lighter than it is here, it's still going to be too dark for that petal. And that's why we make it lighter. Can you see how we made it lighter? So you can either adjust it now or wait till you get this last petal in, and then take your kneaded eraser and just tap until you get it the value you want. And then the final step you could do is some people like to give just a hint of texture in it. Can you see my hatch lines across this side? I didn't do it with a heavy touch. I did it with a very light touch with that pen eraser. Made them brighter in the light area, less prominent in the dark, and not all the way to the end. See how that changed that a little bit? If they're more prominent than you want, guess what you can do? What do you think? Take that tortillon, and suddenly they don't stand out as much, but it still gives that illusion of a little bit of texture going on in it. And if you wanted it a little more over here, this is all dirty tortillon. To add, try a dirty tortillon first. If that's not enough, then you can come back, and this would maybe be a 2B. If you got to do it do it in a few spots. See the break lines in between the spots? And blend them out into it. It's all, adjustments are always made in small amounts. See how suddenly that looks round? It's because we have all three values showing in the proper plane. Now, when you get this done in your flower center, you might, your vein lines might not stick out as much. So notice what I did different. Can you see on this one, there's a little bit of a crisp line, a little here, a little here. I didn't totally outline each one of them, but I had to come back with a pencil in a few areas. Again, can you see how the pencil tip and then nothing and a little more pencil tip? I can't stress enough, do not outline the whole thing. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's say, and I would take the time to sharpen my pencil. 2B at the most, you might start with an HB, and because some of these are in light areas. Now, can you see how that took one turn and I have that factory point again? So I'm going to come in and maybe put a little there. Now this is really too dark. So I really should have used that HB, but let's see if the tortillon will soften it just enough. Remember how I said on the side of my designs, you see all kinds of pencil marks? I would have done this on the side. Now, I'm going over where I did, but do you see how I'm extending it out farther and the line gets lighter as I extend it out? See, those are too prominent, so I should have used that HB, and I'll show you the difference. I'll use an HB right on this one. See how that sets in more? It's not as stark as these are. Can you guys see that or no? That's why I have so many partially done ones. It's because I'm always showing people what not to do as well as what to do. So I first go in the area I wanted, and then I'm extending the drawn line out a little further. Can you see how that's adding more? And you can do that on both sides, but on the other side, not as far. You never want all lines extending the same width. See how that popped that out more? But this line is much shorter than this line. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it.
Hey, Kathy, I'm gonna actually end up sharing the video now. If people need to leave, they can. I'll share the video while they're working on their petals. And then after that, if they have questions for you or want to continue, you're available until 3 o'clock. So should we just go ahead and we're not able to share the link to the video after. I mistakenly offered that. It's still kind of in editing mode for our team. So once it's available to share, we will do that. But anyway, for now, I'll just share the video. It's kind of a work in progress.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
Now, when I did these real fast, that really isn't a vein. It's too light. So this is where maybe try to just slightly pull pigment. See how I soften that? Using that dirty tortillon is so helpful in many, many ways. And it's less to have to extract again if you've put too much on. For those of you that have to leave, I really hope you enjoyed this and learned something. I hope you visit my website. Again, it's www.kathyhanson.art. No, kathyhansonart.com.
We forgive you because we know it's very new.
Well, I wanted to be able to do Kathy Hanson .com again, but while it was down, someone else bought the domain out from underneath me and wanted $1,000 to get my name back. I'm like, I'll do kathyhansonart.com. So a lot of tutorials, I'm going to have all kinds of videos. I'm really, it's just the start. I only even have my graphite designs up for now.
Okay.
I work in so many other
They
mediums,
mean the template, yeah.
but I'm really wanting it to be
I was just about to say,
education destination. I
but you're
really
right.
want to
It's why the
fill it
line.
with all kinds of fun technique videos that you can just watch. And so I hope you visited or my social media, which is all linked through my website. Thank you so much for those that have to leave for joining me. And like I said, I really hope you enjoyed it. Heck, even half as much as I did.
Awesome. It was great, Kathy. And Kirsten, do you mind real quick if we do the gallery view before we start the video?
Of course.
Okay, awesome. All right, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you go the upper right-hand corner, click on view, do gallery, and stick your work in front of the camera, that would be awesome. We would love to just see what you folks created today. I love to see the varying. Oh my God, gorgeous. Kathy, look at this.
All right.
Sarah,
Pencil
you
fog
finished the whole
meditative.
piece. Oh my God.
Wow.
Wow.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that is so cool. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for being here today. This was so fun. For
Thumbs
anyone
up.
that had their first class with us today, please sign up for more. We love beginners because it's just such a great, refreshing, way to engage with you guys. Nice job. You guys did great. Wow. That's my favorite part. I love it. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. All right, Kirsten, you have the power. Go ahead. And share. Thank you, Kathy, so much. This was
Now,
awesome.
guys, I'm going to be taking more questions, or I can even demonstrate more stuff for anybody who wants to stay on.
One moment. I need to make sure I share the sound. It's about 3.5 minutes.
A pencil is exciting for so many reasons. It's the most simple technology, yet it's the foundation for helping people express their ideas. It's writing down history, creating designs to build new technology. I mean, you could kind of credit the pencil for helping us build America.
The General Pencil Company, making all kinds of pencils for students, artists, architects since 1889.
Merry Christmas!
General Pencil Company dates back to 1860 when my great-great-grandfather began making pencils in the USA. He created 360 designs and over 28 patents. I get inspired going to our factory. Some of our artisan pencil makers have been there for 3 generations. Our history is founded on creative expression.
So it's exciting also to hear the narrative about American made, and people really seem to care more and more about that. And so being the last pencil company in Jersey City, we take a lot of pride in that. What gets me really excited about my generation at General Pencil and my generation in the world is that with time going fast and technology moving quick, there's really a shift in energy to slowing down.
We hope to continue to build a sense of community and to help teachers, help students find their creativity.
One of the first things I say to everybody in the beginning of a class is I hope you all make at least one mistake. Because if you do, we'll all learn 30 new things today.
So whatever your creative expression is, we believe it can start with a pencil. Pencil is really the original technology, and what's so cool is it's still around today.
Am I back on?
Yes,
You
but I
are.
just
Thank you,
realized,
Kirsten. That was so great.
good. Kathy, you did not tell this class that you hope they make a mistake, though.
I know, you're right. And you actually saw me. I was the one saying about, I hope everyone makes a mistake in one of my classes, because we'll all learn like 40 new things then, how to correct things. One thing I did not, and you actually saw me in the video, so now you know what I look like besides my hands. The charcoal white pencil, the reason I included it in is when you are building up all these subtle little lights, whether it's charcoal or graphite, let's say, and I can't do it yet because it's not built up enough, but if I couldn't erase it to be a bright enough white, you can take your charcoal white pencil, dip it in water, but I always make this the last step because this water is turning this into a mixed media tool. It no longer is going to just um, lay down a dry white pigment. It's going to turn into this bright white liquid, and it will pop, just wet it
Oh,
in a small
okay.
section of each one of those dots.
Not muted.
Just pop that. But when this dries, it's permanent. So in charcoal, it effortlessly will lay down. And I'm gonna find that sheet of paper, gosh darn it. I had it already laid out. Here it is. On charcoal, it instantly gets bright. This is on graphite. Graphite, you have to wet it, lay it down, let it dry, wet it, lay it down. You have to do several layers. The first layer on charcoal is going to give you that value white. The second layer gives you that value. So you can even get more than one value out of this. This though, because when it dry, I wet it and now I lay it down. And you see that bright white that it just laid down? If I lay this down over acrylics or inks or gouaches or watercolor, it seals once it dries, so you can even build additional layers on top of it. But isn't that cool? So that is why I included it in case you couldn't get dark enough. Just like that 9XXB. Let's say you can't get it dark enough. Look how dark that 9XXB is in just a tiny area. It is not shiny like traditional graphite. It is black, flat black matte graphite. So when I really want drama or depth or punch, that's when I use my 9XXB. So there's a method to my madness. Really, the only thing that you do not have in your kit that I use in all of my graphite designs is our powder. So almost any design you can create just from the kit that you guys got from taking this class. Any other questions?
Kathy, I just want to say Dave is a rock star. He got the graphite you wanted up on the website yesterday. So I want to share that in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was so happy about that. So we're going to add that to your supply list. Oh, it's
Awesome.
actually already there. Oh, whoops.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
Oh, good. Okay. People are so good. Oh my God. Sorry, Diane. I keep meaning to send this to everyone and I keep sending it. All right. The question Diane has is about the layout pencil.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that?
Actually, if I can only take one pencil with me along with like a sketch pad or anything, I take my layout. It's our equivalent to an ebony pencil. We call ours a layout. What it brings to the table is it will create practically your entire grayscale for you. Remember, where you hold the pencil will help lighten or darken a degree. So way back here, I can get super light, scoot down a little bit more, scoot down a little bit more, scoot down a little bit more, scoot down a little bit. Do you see all the values this one pencil will create? This is what I do when I am sketching out my designs, because I can make an area lighter or darker. Or let's say I'm first going to create something. you see how I effortlessly can create more than one value, and it has smudge power and is, I mean, I use it all the time. Prior to the 9XXB, that was the pencil that I used because I could get it a little darker than an 8B or a 9B. But it still had that shine. That's why I mean, when they came up with this, they just were super rock star to me. Because there's no reflection in it. It doesn't lay down like traditional graphite and bounce that shine back up at you. So that's what I love about the layout. It's what I lay my designs in, and if I don't have a 9XXB handy, it I can get it darker than just my 6B. Can you see how this even now is starting to look more dimensional, which is just those little bit of extra pops in there? That was a close-up of the flower centers that I was doing for you. And like I said, you don't totally outline it. Let me totally outline this one and you'll just see. Even if I blend it, it flattens it. See how that looks so much flatter than these that just have soft varying values around them? Yes, no? If you use white pencil on watercolor, what was the question?
Does it become a mixed media piece? And you have to identify it as such, I think is the question.
It would,
Yeah.
if it's in a competition, yes. If you're just doing it for your own fun or to give to a friend or this or that, yeah, it really is. It's not just true, pure watercolor.
Angie's wondering, like petal 4, sorry, this goes back to like the specific drawing. There's a petal 4 where I think, yeah, she's asking how you treat, like to know how you treat that wide folded petal edge, petal number 4. There's a bit of a dip in the center of that edge. Yeah, I think
Oh.
it's that one exactly that you were just pointing to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what you could do with that, like I said, I wasn't going to overwhelm a beginner. You actually, with this one, can bring this up so it looks like it's going over into it. Now, notice, I still made it look like it went all the way over, but you see how it's not as bright there as it is here? And then another thing, I would shimmy them up, really shimmy them up. And then I would start with a 2B, not a 6B right off the bat, and emphasize this. Right where that little dip is. Bring it down to a point, almost like a V. Can you see where I put that extra in? There are so many ways to further manipulate and accent something. And possibly even bring that up more. But can you see how I kind of did that? I could even pronounce this a little higher. I would obviously, you see, I use my tortillon a lot for when in doubt. So I kind of changed that and it pronounced the dip more. But I would have to go back in and add a little more pigment because the dirty tortillon wasn't enough. And then I would 6B just barely. Now, do you see how that changed that whole thing? But again, we got to crawl before we walk, before we run. See how that even, I mean, we could add even so much more little nuances to this to even take that to the next level. But to be able to say that you created, something realistic in your beginning stages of art, to me is awesome. And like I said, each one of my designs, I introduce different techniques. So I really do hope you all check out my website. This bothers me. This goes out a little too much. So for those of you sticking around, remember I said you could change the shape of something? This is why I first do it with my tortillon, because if I don't like it, then I can lift it out easier. Now watch. Now I'm going to take this in a little bit. Didn't that just like soften that? It was like too. Do y'all see what I mean? Yes, no? And, you know, the more you look at something, I needed to bring that out a little more. I like that extension better. Okay. So, but then I would have to come in and say, okay, I changed this line. So I've got to bring the new light back. See, and this is why I always tell everyone, don't adjust until the very end. Because every time you make one adjustment, you end up having to make 2 or 3 because you adjusted this. Now you got to adjust this, and then you got to adjust this. And before I do final adjustments, I put it away for a day because the mind likes to fill in the blank. The mind has a vision of what it's supposed to look like. And after working on things for extended periods of time, the mind starts filling in. When you take your eyes off it and come back a day later, instantly what needs to be corrected pops up because you're looking at it with fresh eyes. So
That's
hopefully
fantastic.
those of you that are experienced picked up 1 or 2 new tricks, and hopefully those of you that are new to it, you enjoyed it enough that you want to complete this and keep on drawing.
Thank you, Kathy. This was incredible. I mean, I learned stuff and I've been drawing for way too long. So I hope these comments are great, and it reinforces how many people stuck around, obviously, that they were engaged and definitely enjoyed your class. So thank you so much. Can't wait to have you back.
Is there
Sincerely.
any way I could see the chat bar that you could send that over afterwards?
Yeah, so what I just discovered, for anybody that wants to save the chat, actually Lauren discovered this and showed me. At the bottom of the chat box, there are 3 dots. If you open that, at the very top, it says save chat, and that automatically saved it to my computer.
Now, see, I don't have those 3 little dots.
At the bottom of your chat box next to the smiley face, you don't have
I don't have a smiley face. I'm on a Mac.
Oh, okay. I have it saved for you, so I will email it. Oh, dots are at the top of Angie's. I don't know if, but I didn't, Lauren just found that, and it's very cool that it's there because it just saves it to your computer, and then it's a text file. It's a little annoying, but if there are any tips in there that you wanted to pull out, you could find them. But I will send it to you.
Awesome. My website, they're having problems with Stripe today, so I can't say it's definitely going to be live. But what was really cool is Lauren said that if anyone sees a different one of my step-by-step tutorials and wanted to purchase it, if you use the code Plaza24 for the rest of the month, once it's finally up, you would get 20% off. And like I said, everything in all those tutorials that I use, 99% of it is already in your kits. And what isn't, Plaza carries all of it. I love the fact that they even put that powder in right off the bat.
Awesome. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
if
we
you ever
have
have me back,
stores.
I hope you join me again in another class.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend. Keep creating. Hashtag create with Plaza Art. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing? If
Yeah.
any of you guys, we would love for you to post your finished ones in hashtag Plaza and also General Pencil. We would love to see your work.
Great. Thank you so much. Absolutely. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Where did my mouse go?